Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today I am putting the spotlight on this. This is part of the Masterverse line from Mattel. We have the Masters of the Universe Revelation Teela. And this is Teela as she appears in the new Netflix series. I bought this the other day at Target. I believe it was like either $21 or $22. I did not find this where they normally have the Masters of the Universe figures. This figure was actually put on an end cap display, and I think that was more so to grab the attention of shoppers since it's the holiday season. It was placed alongside some new G.I. Joes, some new Transformers, and I think a couple of new board games. So when I saw this, I immediately picked it up. Big fan of Teela. I'm enjoying her on the new cartoon. I think it's kind of neat how she's kind of like the main protagonist for at least it seems like the first half of the season. I haven't watched the second half yet. It just came out like a week ago. But I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. I love Teela. I love the kind of relationship they established with her and Evelyn. I kind of like the stuff they're doing with her and her dad. So it's a fun character, and this is a great kind of like modern take on the much beloved character that we had in the 80s. This isn't her traditional, look that we got way back when. It's slightly updated, and I can appreciate that. It looks cool. All right, so when I found this at Target, I was like walking to the checkout aisle, and then the first thing I noticed is as I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, she's missing her spear because you can see here, there's no spear in the tray. And my first thought was, okay, either it was stolen, this was a return, or they forgot to package it inside. And then as I was walking to the checkout aisle or checkout counter, I'm kind of thinking to myself, this was the only Teela they had in the store. And I'm like, you know what? Either way, I have to leave with it because I'm not sure if I'll run into her like in the wild again, or at least anytime soon. So then as I'm walking to go check this out, I'm like, you know what? It might be in the box still. Let's shake it around. So I started shaking the box around, and lo and behold, there's the spear. It popped up. And me being crazy and with my OCD the past few days, this has been sitting on my table, and then it's like a weird new game I'm trying to play. It's like, let's get the spear back into the tray. So I'm always constantly trying to like jostle this around, hoping that I could get this thing back to where it's supposed to be. But I don't think that's ever gonna happen. So I don't know. I'm just nuts. Hey, there we go. Pretty close enough. All right. So yeah, this is how it'd normally look. I'm surprised that I got it to like, fall into place. The only thing is it's not a snug fit. It needs to be depressed into the tray itself. All right, so enough about that. We have Teela. I love how she's in this action pose. And, you can see all the accessories that come along with her. She has extra hands. She has her staff when it's kind of retracted in. And then you have it like in the sword mode. On the side, a really cool image of her in action. And on the back, another cool image of her. So we have Teela, the heroic warrior goddess. It's cool that they're calling her a goddess. Captain of the Royal Guard, warrior, hero, Teela has been many things in her life, but there's now only one word that can describe her best: survivor. Outraged by the secrets and lies from those closest to her, Teela has thrown down her sword and title and uses her battle-hardened skills to scavenge for magical artifacts for the highest bidder. But one can only evade their destiny for so long. So it's kind of crazy. They kind of almost describe her. It's almost like she's like a gun for hire, or a mercenary, or a scavenger. I'm kind of on the fence to be honest, about her new haircut. It feels like this is a very modern hairstyle right now. So if, in my opinion, it kind of dates the design of this character. Like, a few years from now, we're gonna look back at this and say, oh, that was that hairstyle that was big, back in 2020, 2019 or whatever. And it looks cool on her, but I don't know. For me, it seems like it just kind of dates the design of the character. Some other figures in this wave. Of course, we're getting He-Man and Skeletor again. We have Man-at-Arms, which I have reviewed, so go check that out if I didn't post it already. We're looking at Teela. I will do a review on Beastman if it's not up already. And Spikehor, I saw him at the store, had to pass up on him. Hopefully I'll be able to see him again and I'll grab him then. Alright, so let's take a look at Teela. All right. For whatever reason, she does not want to come out of the box this way. All right, there we go. All right, here's her staff that kind of fell out of the tray, which was giving me some problems. It's really cool. I'm glad it's not severely warped. Like, I hate it when you like buy a new action figure, and then sometimes the way it's like situated in the tray, by the time you pull it out, it might be like warped or bent. This one's pretty straight. It's not overly warped. You get this cool cardboard insert. You know, if you want, you can use this as part of a diorama or a display on your shelf. You get 2 extra pair of hands. You get her staff when it's retracted in, so it's just a hilt. And then you get the sword. Alright, so we're going to look at the figure. And I hate these tiny plastic ties. They're annoying. I remember a long time ago, like one of my buddies, we were in college, and then we went to Toys R Us, and then he bought like a Boba Fett figure. I think it was like the 12-inch Boba Fett, and then we were in his car, and he took it out, and he wanted to like check it out, and then Boba Fett was tied down in like with all these ties in, you know, on the tray and plastic and on the cardboard. So it was kind of like a job in itself to remove the figure from the tray. But my buddy, you know, for whatever reason, he kept a pair of nail clippers in his car, because he would cut his nails like whenever he was at a red light, which I thought was kind of funny and odd. But it was very convenient of him to have his nail clippers in his car, because then he was able to take out his action figure right away. So, okay, so we have Teela from the Revelation line. Whoa, I just knocked her. Where did it go? Alright, so I just knocked her spear off the table, and I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Let's clean off some of this dust. Alright, so we have Teela here. First impressions while I'm holding her. The plastic feels nice and durable. So I reviewed Man-at-Arms this recently, and I like that figure a lot. I'm hoping this figure is more of the same. I'm not too deep into the Revelation line. You know, right now I just have a handful of figures. I'm not on board completely yet. As I've stated in my previous video, for me, I'd rather go back and buy the Classics figures than start anew with the Revelation line. And just like Man-at-Arms, just like her dad, I'm having issues with one of these arms. This one does not, as opposed to Man-at-Arms where the arm wouldn't roll up, this arm doesn't want to rotate. It feels stuck. I don't want to force it because it feels kind of gummy. it's not twisting like it should. This one feels smooth. I could rotate this freely, no worries. But this one, there's something odd about this one. I'm not sure what it is, and I don't want to risk breaking it. Dang it. Yeah, there's something odd about this. I'm not gonna force this arm up. I'll probably take a look at it later. But I mean, if you've handled enough action figures, and if you've dealt with like weird quality control issues like stuck joints, you'll know what I mean. There's something weird about certain joints. You know, there's a difference between a joint just being tight versus something that feels like it won't give, and this doesn't feel like it's gonna give. I'm getting too much a pushback. It doesn't want to rotate. So I don't know if the peg is like pinched down by the two halves of the plastic, or if this is a case of something else. But yeah, I'm not gonna force this arm right now, especially since this figure is kind of hard to find. I don't want to risk breaking it. So we're just gonna have to review her with her arm out like this, because this arm does not want to move. It'll rotate down, but it won't rotate around. Yeah, it's really tight. It doesn't want to move at all. Okay, so looking beyond that, here's Teela. Okay, so it's a very different look than the original figure we got in the 80s. This is a much more modern take on the character. She's wearing, for one, she's wearing more clothes, which I don't mind. It's funny, so I forgot that this character was wearing pants. So when I was looking at the figure in the box, I thought her pants, which is it's a slightly darker color than her flesh tone here. At first I thought this was just like bare skin, and I was looking underneath because I'm a pervert. I'm like, oh my god, she doesn't have any underwear. And for me, I had flashbacks to like the late 90s, that whole debacle over Commando Angela. Like if you remember, if you collected the Spawn figures back in the 90s, the McFarlane Spawn action line, there was a character Angela, who's now owned by Marvel, but back then she was a Spawn character created by, I think, Neil Gaiman. So Angela had her own action figure, and one of the big things with her is that, they didn't paint any underwear on her, so she was just in commando. She was without underwear, and everyone went crazy, and they thought that version of the figure would be worth a lot of money, but it really didn't. It really didn't, because they made enough of them where it was kind of common. So my first thought was, being the pervert that I am, is like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my god, she doesn't have underwear. But then I remember, no, this is her pants. So she's actually wearing more clothes. It's not like the original figure. I'm liking what I'm seeing right now. It's kind of cool. So on the back, there's like a slot here, so you could take the one hilt and store it back here. The armor plating, it's not necessarily a soft plastic. It's a little dense, but it's all right. Her neck seems like a little short. I'd prefer if her neck was a little bit longer, especially since with her collar being as high up as it is. It makes her look like a little stout towards the top. So I think if they elongated her neck a little bit better, it aesthetically look a lot nicer. To me, her neck just looks a little short. The body armor here looks nice. Kind of resembles maybe leather plating. She has the two straps on her belt. These are not removable. They're sculpted into the skirt. She has a little pouch on her side. At first I thought it was a holster. She has kneecaps, or knee guards over her kneecaps. She has kind of like these buccaneer cuffed boots with straps around them. It's a nice figure. The design's modern, but it feels a little plain to me. She doesn't have the flair as the older Teela. This one looks a little bit more serious. It's more, I don't know, I guess a little bit more mature and sophisticated. The original 80s Teela, that's really a product of its time, especially when you consider how many barbarian and fantasy movies were in fiction during the 80s. Especially with female characters, they were highly sexualized and objectified. And this character kind of really pushes away from that, for better or for worse. Me being a pervert from the 80s, I would have preferred the original design, but I could live with this. The sculpting is well done. The sculpting in her hair, it's really nice. A lot of fine hair strands. The paint job on her eyes, it's all right. It's clean. Articulation wise, her head rotates. She could look down a little. That's as far as she can look up. Her neck is not articulated. It's only a ball joint that's holding her head on. Arms rotate. They rotate out. Bicep swivel, bicep cut. Double jointed elbows, but the pins are hidden, which is nice. Articulated wrists. It's still bothering me that this arm does not want to rotate. It'll roll down, but it won't rotate because it's stuck. It's stuck really bad, and I don't want to force it. She has articulation below her chest line, so she could tilt left and right, which is nice. No ab crunch, unfortunately. She could kind of lean back, not necessarily bend back. Waist articulation. This is a little stiff, so if you want to have her kick forward, it doesn't really give. So you're kind of limited by how far she could kick forward, even though there's a slit here. She could kick sideways. Again, it's kind of stiff. Doesn't go too far out. She has a thigh cut here. Double jointed knees. The pins are hidden. It kind of bothers me a little that they do a good job of hiding the pins, so it looks seamless, but when you look on the back, the kneecaps are casted in dark brown plastic, and that carries over. So you get that. So it kind of breaks up, the illusion of it being seamless. So you kind of get that effect. It doesn't bother me too much, but for some people, aesthetically, they might not like that. There's a boot cut, so she can swivel at the boot. A lighter shade of brown towards the top of the cuff. Likewise, the straps are a slightly darker color than the rest of the boot. The sculpting's well done. There's some texture on here. It kind of gives it the appearance of looking like leather. She has ankle articulation. Overall, a solid figure. It's Teela. People love Teela. So yeah, I'm stoked on her. I don't know. For me, it's like this character feels more like scornful and virtuosa-like, but I think that's only because of the character. At this stage in her life in the cartoon, she's very angry and angstful that she's been kept in the dark about a lot of things. And I think, the way this character looks physically kind of like embodies that. This really looks like someone that's just been trained and bred for war, and she's part of the honor guard and whatnot. The staff is cool. This looks like something more out of like Star Wars than the Masters of the Universe. This almost looks like something like an Imperial Guard would like wield, not necessarily a character from Masters of the Universe. It looks too streamlined. It doesn't have that weird fantasy barbarian sci-fi aesthetic look to it. But it's it is what it is. As I mentioned before, there was the one accessory where it's just a hilt, and then you can store that on the back here. Yeah, overall, very solid effort. If I had to rate this figure, I don't want to say it a 7 at the lowest, 7.5 at the highest. The Man-at-Arms figure didn't really disappoint me outside of the fact that I had some issues with the stuck joint. Part of my review is based on also like my attachment to the character. I enjoy the character on the show, but there's a part of me that I'm really fond of the original Teela design. This is not the iconic Teela I grew up on, which is okay because this is Masters of the Universe for a newer generation. But at the same time, I think if you're going to deviate from the original design, at least make it look as iconic as the original toy. It doesn't have to look exactly like it, but give it some flair, really make it stand out. This is a very generic guard-like uniform. Of course, she's a guard, but it's Teela. I do appreciate the new hairstyle, but I think they could have given her outfit a little bit more flair. That doesn't mean they need to jump back into the 80s and objectify or sexualize the character. Just give her something that makes it look a little bit more special. This shouldn't be a character where it looks like she just went into the armory and grabbed a couple of pieces of armor. It should be something where it feels a little bit more thought out. And since we're on the subject of like nostalgia and Teela, I have the older figure from the 2000X line, and here it is. Here's Teela. And I love the 2000X line. I can't say that enough. I'm very fond of that line. You know, for me, even though I grew up on the 80s Masters of the Universe figures, there was something about this line of action figures that really had my attention. I thought the design was awesome, the sculpting, the detail. If anything, the only thing it fell short on was articulation, but it was a product of its time. During this time period, we'd always get these action figures that were kind of pre-posed. So even though they're articulated, she's kind of already in this like warrior stance where her legs are spread kind of like far apart and looks like she's ready to rumble. But at the same time, it's like it didn't matter that they gave her articulation, because no matter what you did, she would never be able to hold a pose. So it's like she was kind of forever just stuck in this like static pose, even though she's articulated. But this is a great representation of taking the original costume and updating it, at least for this time period. You know, you look at this immediately screams Teela. Whereas this one, this could be like a generic character from like the Chronicles of Narnia. You know, it doesn't feel like it should be Teela. You know, this one, she has all the gold, she has the white. Granted, it's kind of objectified and sexualized, especially like around the chest area. And then her, she has very long legs, and I'm constantly looking to see if her underwear is painted. But it's a great figure. You see this, it screams Teela. You look at this, not so much. So I mean, aesthetically, that's where I feel that this falls short. It doesn't embody the character that I remember, especially if Master of the Universe is built up so much on nostalgia, and you can't argue against that because there's so much of it that's marketed towards the older fan. For me, it seems kind of weird that that they kind of want to update the design so that they feel a bit more acceptable. Like, but at the same time, know your demographic. The people that are going to buy this are going to be the older collectors. The people that grew up on He-Man, and they do have a Masters of the Universe line that's aimed specifically at kids. Walmart has the CG figures, and they're a lot squatter. They look more cartoony. Whereas this is clearly aimed at the older collector, and if it's aimed at someone that's older, chances are they grew up on the original designs, and there's no reason why you couldn't give us this. There's ways of stylizing it down so it doesn't objectify her or sexualize her as much. But it's this missing, the little tidbits that really make her feel like, the Teela that people remember, that think the Teela that should be. She kind of retains some of that design aesthetics where the armor is very, glorified. It's almost like Romanesque kind of armor. And it still has that kind of like fantasy and sci-fi vibe that we got in the 80s. So for me, I love the original design. I don't think they should have really messed around with it too much. But that's not to say that this is necessarily a bad figure. It's a great figure. It's just me being subjective. Aesthetically, I prefer this one, but that's more based on nostalgia. But I'm sure there's people out there who could appreciate the fact that they've kind of modernized Teela, kind of gave her a more sophisticated air about the character. But I'm always going to lean towards something that looks like this. That's just my opinion. So, do you need this figure? If you're a fan of the new cartoon, I'm going to say yes. And if you're just collecting Revelation just to collect Revelation, the line isn't that deep yet, so, why not? It's very doable to have a complete collection of Revelation figures right now. And we'll see. We'll see how far Mattel takes the Masterverse line. If they continue on for a couple more years, you could be looking at a couple of dozen figures within 3 years, so it's worth getting now. My hope is that with the Masterverse line is that they start dipping into it's called Masterverse. So they start dipping into different universes of Masters of the Universe. So I'm hoping that in some point in time for the Masterverse line is that they give us, a figure with this modern action figure engineering with all the articulation, but revisiting the original design. So I'd love to have Teela in this uniform, but with the more modern engineering, all the bells and whistles of the double jointed elbows and the ab crunches and stuff, because I don't think they should abandon this look of the character. It's to many fans it's very iconic, it's historical, and it's even the look that we've gotten with the origin line. So fingers crossed that in the future we get a throwback to this version of the character. All right, with that being said, let's wrap this video up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your likes, comments, and support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Later.